great country or what? Growing up, I heard my Puerto Rican father use this phrase repeatedly for nearly every situation that arose. It's sunny outside. Is this a great country or what? A 24/7 golf cable channel is born. Is this a great country or what? At around age 27, I found out that he co-opted this phrase from someone close to us who used it all the time. Fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests, tonight I'd like to tell you about my Uncle Tony and Aunt Carmen. Uncle Tony is the person from whom my dad stole this phrase. Aunt Carmen is his wife. I'd like to introduce you to two very interesting characters who played a big part in my life and have reinforced the idea of what family means and what the right attitude can do for you. Have you ever heard or said, he's a character, or she's a character, in describing someone? There are certain people that undeniably fall into the category of being characters. What is a character? What characteristics does a character have to have? It's usually somebody who speaks his or her mind, who blurts. They're usually a bit funny or odd. They're interesting, they're a little different or eccentric. They have interesting habits or rituals. Lack of inhibition plays a part as well. At age 27, I just finished 2 years of graduate school and had decided it was time to fulfill the wish I'd made when I was 10 years old on one of my first visits to New York City. I was going to live there. I had no job and no apartment, but I had something even better, an Uncle Tony and an Aunt Carmen who lived in Staten Island. Tony and Carmen are stereotypical New York characters. Tony with his bald head and those little flat caps with the brim in the front looks like Mr. Clean with a Brooklyn accent. He's 75 now and in great shape still, but even at 55, he was working out in the gym, lifting weights with guys 30 years younger. I remember him always making a muscle for me and asking me to feel it. I moved in with my Aunt Carmen and Uncle Tony for what was supposed to be a 2-week stay that turned into a 2-month delay in finding my own place. Within a week, I'd learned the true origins of this well-worn phrase my dad so often reported growing up. We're at Costco. Uncle Tony and Aunt Carmen love Costco. And I hear Uncle Tony explain how great the rotisserie chicken selection is and follow it with, is this a great country or what? Uncle Tony and Aunt Carmen are not really my aunt and uncle. Aunt Carmen was my grandfather's first cousin, 16 years his junior, which actually made her something a couple of times removed. We could never figure it out, so we left it at aunt and uncle. I was somewhat shy about going to live with them, as I'd always known and loved them, but it had been years since I'd spent more than 24 hours with them. What I remembered about Tony, which had made such an impression when I was younger, was the fact that he was missing 3 fingers on his right hand. He'd lost them in an electric sawing accident, these 3. So when I was a kid, he would perform the missing finger magic trick. Do you guys all remember that? The one we all know where you bend down the thumb and do like this, except all of a sudden he takes his finger out and he has no thumb. Imagine how traumatized I was as a 7-year-old. To this day, he calls me kid. He'll call me on the phone and say, hey kid. I ask him how he's doing. I'm happy. You know, it's easy to be happy when you're dumb. He isn't dumb, but he likes us to think he is. He and Carmen have been married for nearly 47 years and bicker like crazy, but they spend nearly all their time together now that they're both retired, and they need each other. They love outlet malls and sales. Carmen loves to cook and is always giving cooking tips and recipes to anyone within a 3-mile radius. Have you ever had chicken and Bali soup? She's always on the verge of writing a cooking book. He tells her she's long-winded. She gets fed up with him anytime he doesn't watch his diet, which isn't often because she watches him like a hawk. They bicker, but they need each other. Not too long ago, they came down to visit me in Austin. They were explaining Tony's recovery process from prostate cancer. We're sitting at lunch having migas when Carmen looks at me across the table and says, "Do you do Kegels exercises?" I must blow beans out my nose. "You should start. You see, you have 2 sphincters." Then Uncle Tony chimes in. "I hold for 5 seconds, then release." You never know what's going to come out of their mouths. I was lucky enough to see them not too long ago when they came down from Dallas, where they'd been visiting their granddaughter. Over lunch, somehow, they got on the subject of their son, Stephen, who's in his early 30s and is yet unmarried. "You should marry your cousin, Stephen," Carmen says to me. She's never brought this up before. I tell her I can't marry him. He's my cousin. "Oh, it doesn't matter. Yes, you can. He's too far removed for anything to happen." Tony and Carmen are the type of older people I'd like to be when I grow up. They have a great sense of humor, are active, they love to travel. Not too long ago, Tony and I were talking about his age. And he said, "You know, I don't think about being old. I just want to be the best 75-year-old I can be." Just then a car swerved into his lane, and he gave them the finger. Is this a great country, or what? Mr. President.